Ignorance will not be bliss once you tune in to the Raben Report. Hi, I'm Elliot, your host and producer. Season 7 is coming to you next week with brand new episodes, and we are so excited. Who are we? Let's see the brand new team.
Hi, I'm Samuel. I'm a fourth-year business student, and I'm a conservative.
Hi, I'm Amara. I'm a fourth-year politics and governance student, and I'm a centrist.
Hi, I'm Jessica, and I'm a fourth-year media production student, and I'm a liberal.
And together, we are your source for the most important social and political issues affecting you today. We make sure to keep all our discussions respectful and civil. Right, guys?
Yeah.
Sure.
Make sure to tune in to our season premiere on Tuesday, October 8th at 1 p.m. right here on Facebook Live. Guys, what the fuck are you doing? Guys, calm it down. Good morning and welcome to the Raben Report Season 7 premiere. Apologies for the technical delays, but we are here, and for the first time ever, I have my expert panel with me, Amara, Samuel, and Jessica. How are you guys?
I'm good.
Decent.
Great. Good to hear. So, To begin, all opinions expressed are not those of Ryerson or Ryerson faculty and are only those of the individual commentators. Viewer discretion is advised. Before we get to our weekly recap, we're going to start with a quick introduction of our brand new team at the Raben Report. We're going to start with Amara. And Amara, since it is your birthday, we at the Raben Report decided, all three of us, to get you a little something.
Oh my god, thank you.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday.
Should I open it or?
Yeah,
Should I wait?
of
Okay.
course. Well, actually, no, wait. We'll do it after the show.
Thank you, guys.
But yeah, we wanted to get you a little something just to, say happy birthday. And it's our first show, so after the technical difficulties that we endured, it's a little positive note.
Thank you.
But let's start with your introduction. Who are you?
So I'm Amara. I'm a politics and governance student in my 4th year and politically identify as a centrist.
Awesome. And Samuel, let's move on to you.
Sure. I'm a 4th-year business management student. I am the right-wing conservatives person on this show. Yeah.
Awesome. And Jessica?
I am Jessica, and I'm a 4th-year media production student with a concentration in law and business, and I'm a super left-wing liberal.
Awesome. So definitely we've got a very diverse cast, very diverse team for you today. So let's start with our weekly recap. The first story is that Dick's Sporting Goods has destroyed about $5 million worth of assault rifles following pressure to remove it from their
I didn't have time to look at the specifics of what guns they specifically destroyed. It was hard to find. But
assault rifle style.
does that just mean
That's all.
Semi-automatic
black rifles?
rifles.
Something like, I think it hunting based.
hunting based?
Yeah.
Well, those aren't used in a majority of shootings in the GTA or even in Canada, so I don't know.
Is Dick's only in the States, though? It's not a Canadian issue.
No?
No.
No.
No, yeah, but it's the only form of American politics that we had today.
Oh.
But thoughts? Anybody else? Amara?
I think it's a PR move, There's been a lot of mass shootings in the States recently, a lot. And yeah, I think that's really all it is. I don't really think it means anything.
Yeah, if you want to get an AR-15 or any other type of, assault rifle type weapons, whatever that means, you're not going to be stopped by not being able to go to Dick's and buying one. You can print one, for God's sake.
And that's not all of their guns, is it? It's like $5 million worth, but they still have guns in
No,
their
but I
stores.
think that's all of it.
It's
No,
all of it?
they're not selling guns anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which I think is a good start, because even if it gets, one less source for people to buy guns, I'm very anti-gun, so I think it's a start. But I do agree with you that it is probably for publicity, because I'm looking at their stocks right now and they have increased over the last few, steadily increased over the last few days. So it can't be said to be a total, this is just for, the safety of Americans, even though I do support it fully. I don't believe anybody should have access to a gun. You can't deny that there's going to be some publicity involved in that.
Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely a big debate. But let's move on to something a little more positive. The women-only spacewalk is happening now. Congratulations.
Thank you on behalf of women everywhere.
So the reason that it was delayed was because, embarrassingly, the spacesuits, were too big for the women. But now that they are the right size,
They're going.
yeah, they're going. What are everyone's thoughts? The first female-led and first full female crew.
It's about time.
Why though? Women have been in space before, correct? I'm pretty positive women have been in space. I don't really think that having an all-female spacewalk is that important. It's cool. And I think it's funny that the spacesuits they had were too big, because there's not that many women astronauts, I guess. But
It's for that awareness, though. I think
I don't know if any little girl wants to be an astronaut and feels like she can't because she's a girl. I mean, it's nice, but I don't think it's completely necessary.
I think it's I think it's pro-feminism, and I think it's a way to just get awareness. And I think after that huge kind of PR embarrassment, it was a necessity almost. You don't just not make proper suits for female astronauts because a majority of your NASA employees are male.
But why would they make a bunch of suits for like small suits when most of the people they have won't use them. Like that doesn't really make sense. I
No,
don't
but
think
they should have them.
They probably didn't have enough. I'm sure they had
Yeah.
some.
Those like multi-million-dollar suits.
Yeah, like
don't
it just
know.
doesn't make sense to like manufacture extra for women that don't.
Well, if you're
Go to
going to
space.
create this like female spacewalk, then
Yeah.
you need to have the resources. You can't
Yeah.
just be like, hey, we're going to do this female only spacewalk and then not have the
them.
resources. Like it's supply and demand. It's basic business.
I
But
agree with
I don't know.
that. I think that like
I think it's cool.
they should have made sure they had everything they needed before they like advertised that they would do
Yeah.
it. But I think them not having female spacesuits is not that wild. And I don't think it's necessarily sexist. I think it's just practical.
When you said PR nightmare, I thought you were referring to that woman that committed the first space crime. You remember
Oh.
reading about that?
I do.
what
Like she
happened?
fraudulently accessed her husband's
Her wife's.
Oh,
her wife's?
yeah.
Wife's.
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah,
her
yeah,
husband's bank account.
Her wife's
Her
bank
wife.
account.
Her wife's. Sorry, just didn't form that connection.
Heteronormative.
Yep.
Exactly.
I'm joking.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think it's cool. You know, it's a feminist stance, and I think it's something to be proud of, as those women should be proud of what
I think
they're
they should
doing.
be proud of going to space, but I don't think they should be like going to space is a pretty big deal, like man or woman, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's cool. I just don't think it's necessary.
Interesting take. Well, then let's move on to something a little more local, and that's the fact that the CUPE strike was avoided. Thanks to the Ford government, they reached a deal with CUPE. Both
Because
sides.
of the Ford government.
Well, thanks to both parties for coming together and reaching a deal. It was happening over the weekend at the Sheraton Hotel, I believe.
Yeah.
Sheraton, yep. And they came to a deal, and there was a lot of funny videos about parents cheering and
Yeah.
kids being upset and punching laptops that they have to go to school. A lot of spicy memes. So what are your thoughts that a strike was averted? Because we basically had a strike almost every year at this point. York University, and then there was the college strike the
You have
year
had a strike when
before.
I was
Yep.
there. Yep. All the TAs.
It's everybody's having a strike, clearly, and finally one was avoided.
I think it's great. My brother's in grade 12, and as much as it would have been nice to not have to go to school on a random Monday, strikes really just mess stuff up, especially if you're graduating. And
Very
I feel
much
like
so.
the Ford government has already messed up a lot of kids' grade 12 years.
Yeah.
Enough.
Yeah,
Like, I'm glad
there's
that
a
it
lot of
didn't
stories
happen
of
again.
kids not being able to graduate because they,
Can't get their
arts was
courses.
cut, English classes were cut, and then his plan of action was like, oh, take night school. You know how hard that is for some kids? Like, what if they don't have access to a car? What if their parents don't drive? What if they don't have public
Or
transportation?
even if they have all of that, like that's going to school at night.
Exactly. Yeah, it's another couple hours on top of your 7-hour day. I'm very glad that they obviously reached the settlement, but if it did go to full on strike, they definitely had the grounds, and I would have supported it 100%. I support the QB workers 100%. My mom's one of them, so of course I'm going to.
Yeah, I would have supported them as well. I'm just glad that it didn't happen. and they
Yeah,
reached an agreement.
yeah, it's better for the kids.
What's
Yeah.
interesting is that as teacher salaries have increased year over year, maybe there's disagreement on how much they should have increased. The quality of education,
Education is one of our most sustainable pillars, and it has to be to the utmost highest degree possible. Same with our healthcare.
Yeah,
so
but
it's
it's
not
not.
areas that you cut ever.
oh, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying why if the salaries for teachers and their assistants, that's what the union specifically was teaching support staff, right?
Like
Is my understanding?
caretakers.
Yeah.
Caretakers, yeah. And I think teachers too, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
no,
it was both.
they were all part of it.
But why, even though their salaries are increasing and the resources we allocate to them are increasing, we're still, I think, 16th in education worldwide. It's same
better
problems
than
in
the States.
Well, that's not saying much.
That's
They're
a
in the,
whole
like,
other story.
They're way down there. But yeah, I'm curious why, even though we're allocating more funding and we say it's so important, that we continually slip in the world rankings.
I think it comes down to the levels of education that teachers are being supported for giving. It comes down to our curriculum that needs some readjustments, as well as I know a big part of this strike was students with disabilities and not having the amount of infrastructure and TAs put in place to help students with disabilities. And basically Ford wanted a classroom of just, students with learning disabilities, or maybe we're on the spectrum and stuff like that, and to be put in a classroom with just one teacher and that teacher in charge of everybody else. And if you're dealing with students that, let's say they're nonverbal, or they have different, like, some of them can be, some of them can be aggressive, and they need one-on-one support. And if you're not giving that to the teachers, then all the other students in that classroom are going to suffer, not to mention that individual themselves are not getting the support that they need. Development of these students that at this point in their lives, they need more of a support system.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I agree with that.
Oh,
I agree.
Okay. Well, at least we got some common. At least we got some common ground. But now we're about to get into deep, non-common ground territory. It's time for our main story, which is the Canadian federal election, part 1 of 3. Once again, we have an election here in Canada. Over the course of this show, we've covered the U.S. federal election, the Ontario provincial election, as well as municipal elections across the province. Now we go back to our roots, and just like in Season 1, start with a 3-part election coverage series. Beginning with the election process, for those who don't know, Canada's electoral system is referred to as a first-past-the-post system. The candidate with the most votes in a riding wins a seat in the House of Commons and represents that riding as a Member of Parliament, or MP. As a result, power has been held by either of 2 parties for most of Canada's history, them being the Liberals and Conservatives. This October, current Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is vying for re-election of his Liberal government. Plagued by scandals, Scheer and his Conservatives are doing their best to play off of those scandals and convince Canadians that they are the right choice. Meanwhile, the NDP and the Green parties are trailing in 3rd place, trying to show Canadians that there is a third choice. And then there's the Bloc Québécois, which is only popular in Quebec. The election, no bias. The election will be very different from those in pasts because of a new addition to the electoral circuit, which is the People's Party. Before we start, remember that we are live on Facebook, and we will be reading your comments live on air. So let's start with the first question. Is everyone voting here?
Yes.
Obviously.
Yeah, well,
Absolutely.
I sure hope so. Otherwise, the door's right over there. But let's actually pull up our Facebook poll. Sam, you want to pull up our Facebook poll? We actually asked, and Jessica, you want to go to our Instagram story?
Of course.
And we have a poll there that we posted. And the question that we asked people was, are you voting? Yes or no? And based on the results, so Sam, you have it pulled up?
Sure.
So how many people voted in the poll? Total?
How do I see that?
Just click total votes. It should say at the bottom.
Oh, 78 votes.
78 votes.
Wow.
That's really good. And in terms of percentage?
So 82% said they are planning to vote or have voted, I guess, because there's early polling available. Yeah. And 18% said, no, I will not vote.
And the number of people? How much is each vote? You can actually check.
I can?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah, you can. Okay, let's move on to our Instagram.
Oh, wait, I can.
Oh, you can.
Sorry, I just saw that. 64 said yes, 14 said no.
Okay, so 14 people. If you're watching the show, tell us
What's
why
wrong
you
with
said
you?
no.
Yeah.
I mean, you can phrase it like that too, but I just
Civic duty.
Yeah, it is, because even now, like, people are approaching me as I was walking to school. I was like eating, and he's like, "Yeah, go vote." I'm like, "Do you know who I am?" So
Yeah, I find it awesome though that they're doing advanced polls right outside of what's that building? Basically, just
The SCC?
on
Yeah.
which is awesome. Like, it's so easy.
And voting on campus in general. I think is
Yeah,
really
like
cool.
I think that's an incredible initiative, because if it's right in your face, like, especially this is the generation that it's right in your face, you're going to know about it and you're going to do it. And if it's like, you're walking down the street, somebody tells you to vote and it's right there, you're going to more likely
than
vote.
like taking time out of your day and going to some school or something.
Exactly. Exactly.
And our Instagram poll?
So we have 88% voting yes, they will vote, and then 12% no. That's a high percent.
That actually.
I am not good with Instagram, I'll be honest. 83.
83 people?
Yeah.
83 people?
Oh, sorry, 63 people.
In our Instagram poll?
Yeah.
Wow.
I shared
That's
I have
a
some
lot.
clout. I have some
Oh.
IG clout.
63
so, yeah.
people in the
Yeah.
Insta poll. That is actually shocking. I
With
didn't
one
expect to hit
reply.
that number.
Ooh, what'd they say?
It was
I think
Jessica.
it was me, actually.
it was Jessica messaging me, who the hell's not voting?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
I needed to know the deets. I needed to know
And I
the
just
names.
said log
So
in.
true, yeah.
I just said log in and you'll see.
Check yourself.
Exactly.
I
So
told you I'm not good with Instagram or any form of social
well, the
media.
fact that you got 63 people to vote, so
There you
Amazing.
go.
that was all you. Let's move on now. Who does everyone believe will be the next prime minister? Amara, we're going to start with you.
I don't know exactly. I think it will be either Trudeau or Scheer. I don't think it'll be Singh. I also hope it's not Singh. But yeah, I think Trudeau has a pretty good chance, especially with, I don't know, maybe just because I'm immersed in our generation, but I do know we have a pretty decisive voice, though obviously not everyone votes all the time.
Right.
But especially his pro-life comments that are being blown up recently, I think people are just going to vote for Trudeau because they don't want a conservative government. So we'll have him again.
Sam?
I think Trudeau probably get a minority government.
Really?
Yeah, which is
Wow.
almost worse because they couldn't enact any new things, and I don't think the Conservatives or anyone else in the opposition could change much.
Well, yeah, and the NDP said that they would not be forming a coalition with the Conservatives, so you can rule out them doing anything. But I feel like the NDP would probably make some changes and help the Liberals if that were to happen.
Well, it is more liberal government.
Yeah. And Jessica?
I really, 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 really hope it's not Scheer.
Yeah, me too.
So much for having a conservative panelist.
I don't like Scheer.
Do you like Bernier?
Yeah, he's
Oh
better.
God, the nationalist. Anyway, I think for me personally, it's between Singh and Trudeau. I have my issues with Trudeau, especially from the outlook of like what he promised to do for Indigenous communities, and he never came through, as well as his plan for environment isn't where it should be. That's why I'm leaning towards more of an NDP government. I don't have like a fully formed opinion on Singh as an individual yet, necessarily.
The worst.
But I mean, realistically, it's always between liberals and conservatives. That's how it's been for, I don't even know how long.
Forever, basically.
Since
Basically,
Confederation.
yeah.
Well, the Progressive Conservative Party just was from the late 90s, I think, right?
The progressive conservatives. Before it was just conservatives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a different party.
It was.
Yeah. So when you think about it realistically, that's I mean, when you're watching the polls on election day, it's just going to be bouncing between the two. I love Elizabeth May, and I like the Green Party platform a lot. I'm just it worries me to vote that way just because it doesn't have as much of a substantial merit, I guess, to it than if you were to vote
It's
liberal.
throwing
or,
your vote away.
Yeah,
basically.
I mean, I don't want to say that, but like
But it is.
basically is. I mean,
It would
at least you're
only-
voting. I mean, that's important. That is.
But it would only
important.
matter voting Green, say, in Elizabeth May's riding because she's going to win.
They have one seat.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Did they have one or two?
One.
One, okay, because I thought they had two at one point.
I just Google. I mean,
Oh.
Google might be wrong,
Oh.
but I'm pretty sure it's one.
That makes more sense, Google being wrong, yeah.
Yeah, it does. Then you.
Yeah, so that's my take as of yet.
Okay. And, there's a lot of talk of lowering the voting age to 16.
Oh, God. People would vote. I think younger people tend to be more emotional and persuaded by maybe people older than them and the general trend. And I think social media culture, media in general pushes a left-wing narrative. So I would see either the NDP.
Not necessarily. Not
I
if you
think
come from
it
a
does.
conservative environment, though.
That's
Where?
true.
Like a family.
Oh, okay. Now, I was talking about media specifically, but maybe it's true of some families. But I think, no, I would definitely, if you were to lower the voting age to 16, you'd see more NDP and liberal turnout for sure.
Yeah, I read something that was saying that it would maybe encourage more people to vote, like, for their lives. Like, if you start voting, you're more likely to keep voting.
Yeah.
And they'd probably vote at school. Like, they could have the voting booths in high schools. And I think that would be a good thing from it. But I do think that they'd be very heavily influenced by, like, basically, I don't know, whoever your civics teacher was, I think would have a good influence
or why not
on
have,
who
like,
you voted for.
a mock poll in your school where people vote.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And then the results are announced. I mean,
The narrative about voting should be starting a lot younger than it does, because
Sure.
I know it's, even from my personal experience, it wasn't like you did civics, which was just like, you know, a bird course, something to raise your average. Like, it wasn't
I got a
anything.
51 in civics.
What?
How'd you get a 51
Ridiculous.
in civics?
I don't know.
You're kicked off the Raben report. Not politically insightful enough. Anyway, but if you like, if it's talked about more, and it's, you know, the importance of voting is discussed about more from an early age, starting at 16, then I think people would be, even, you know, you could stretch saying that they're more excited to turn 18 and vote, and to have their voice being heard. Yes, we do have a liberal society. I mean, here in Toronto specifically, that doesn't mean that there's a lot of conservative ideals, especially a lot of closed door racism. So that could influence a lot of young voters, and I think at 16 you are more susceptible to being an impressionable youth, especially like your friends, like, oh, my best friend is voting liberal, so I'm gonna vote liberal.
Weed, dude. Think about the weed. No, they should raise the voting age, if anything.
No,
They should
I think
definitely not
18.
raise
I
the
should have
voting
not have
age.
voted at 18.
You should not be able to enlist in the military and not vote. That's
you are
ridiculous.
an informed citizen if you take the time
You're
and
not
actually
necessarily
make.
informed.
Well, if you become an informed
Yeah.
citizen, you have the right to be at 18. And I
Yeah.
think if you're 18, you should realize that, okay, now I have civic responsibility. You can be called to jury duty. You should be able to
Yeah, I think if there's
understand
anything, I think if you can join the military, like, if we're going to raise other ages, then you need to raise the age for that as well.
Yeah.
Because, like, how can you make the choice to die for your country, but you can't vote in an election?
Yeah.
It's kind
And
of
those
ridiculous.
like kind of issues would directly affect you if you were a
Yeah,
military
absolutely.
person. So, yeah.
I disagree, but okay.
So
How
are
do you
they-
disagree?
Well, I think serving your military is a more noble
How is it
and
noble?
important.
because we have romantic ideas of war
Yeah.
Sure.
and manhood.
Yeah, Canadian military, right? I don't know. I just see them as completely different.
But
So you
I
don't
feel
think
like
politics and war are
No, they're
friends?
yeah,
at
no,
least?
they're directly connected. But I think serving the military, especially, the military requires young men, and if you
Not
women.
only, also women. Women can serve.
sure.
What? What's with
Jeez.
that serve? Women
No,
can
I
serve.
agree with you. Sure.
Oh, it's pretty sassy.
young
sure.
people. But I
Young
think that if
people,
those young
yeah.
people are going to decide to, like, literally risk their lives for the country
Mm-hmm.
and whatever it decides are in its political interests in terms of going to war, they should have a say in that.
Exactly.
Like,
I
how
100%
should they
agree with you.
not?
I don't
So
know.
you
Just,
would-
like, die
Sam,
for
you
whatever
would-
government wins.
Sam, you would go to war without being able to vote for the war or not?
No, I think maybe if you had had a history of military service, you'd be able to vote.
That's really proprietary.
So now you're basing.
Greeks did. And
We're
that's
not-
where democracy
The
comes
Greeks did
from.
a lot of
Oh, I
things
know.
Yeah.
in their
Let's not
The
talk about
original
that.
birthing of
Olympics.
democracy that weren't that great.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, this is quite a scandalous opinion for 16-year-olds to vote, but let's move on to the bigger scandals of this election cycle. Let's start with the scandals seem like Trudeau's scandals seem very liberal and
scandals?
Scheer. Oh,
I'm joking.
I don't know what you're talking about.
and Scheer's scandals seem very conservative. Trudeau, his scandals are SNC Lavalin, blackface, India, and or his trip to India. What else? Am I
Just
missing
India
something?
in general. The whole country.
Am I missing something?
I don't think so.
No. Okay, so let's unwrap. Well, not in terms of
unpack
blackface,
this.
but
Unwrap
let's unpack
blackface.
this. Yeah, let's unpack this. You want to start us off? Everybody's obviously very interested.
Well, if we're talking about blackface, I think obviously I don't like it when people do blackface. Like, it's,
Really?
I wouldn't say I'm like personally offended and have a hard time like falling asleep. But it's not cool. I don't like it. I don't necessarily think Trudeau is a racist. I think blackface is racist. I think it comes from racist practices. And it's just mainly ignorance. Like his thing where he said that privilege, I forget what he said, but like privilege, I guess, blinds you or makes you ignorant and makes it easy. I think that's definitely true. But I think anybody who was not going to vote for somebody because they did blackface isn't going to vote for Scheer. So I don't think it's going to change too much. Maybe the NDP will get more seats because of that, but I don't really think it's going to affect him too much.
Well, there's been a lot going around the media realm as well. It's like, obviously, not supporting Trudeau's actions, but it's like looking at all the like if you were originally going to vote Liberal and then out of spite or out of anger or not supporting obviously those practices, just to vote Conservative because it'll get back at the Liberal Party. Like they were really promoting and showing the Conservative platform and how it is incredibly anti-liberal agenda. And like that was just, it was done to make awareness. It's like, hey, if you're not going to vote Liberal, then at least look in a different realm like NDP, Green. Don't just go to the Conservative platform because you disagree with the scandal that happened with Trudeau. I mean, I think everybody disagrees. Any like normal-minded, reasonable person.
Think even like would
disagree
Bernier
with
say
that.
he agrees with blackface? I don't think so. I don't think anyone's going to come out and say
exactly.
that was a
I think
good thing.
Yeah.
the only thing that what it might do is put a wet blanket on any enthusiasm people would have for voting for Trudeau, which might lower his turnout. I don't see him switching, or voters that potentially would have been offended by that would switch to the Conservatives, or maybe not even the NDP. I don't know.
I think and then because of like the way voting is, they're going to strategically vote to keep the Conservatives out. So I still think they'd vote Liberal.
Really?
If they were planning to. Yeah, because the NDP's probably not going to win federally.
But do you
so
think
they
it
wanna
might
keep them
reduce like the enthusiasm people to that like vote in general? Like if they say, "Oh, I was only going to vote for Trudeau, but I don't feel so
out. I
good
don't know.
about him."
I don't think
pretty
it will
sad.
reduce the enthusiasm of people voting for him. I think they'll vote for him reluctantly now.
Yeah.
But I don't think that people
won't
who are
vote
planning
at
to
all.
vote for him, just won't vote. I don't think that'll happen.
I think people that want to vote and actually make the effort to vote aren't going to like just not vote because their party pissed them off. You know what I mean?
You think so?
Like, I think most people, it's pretty, I don't know, it's not rational. I mean, but again, people aren't rational all the time. I mean, I personally wouldn't, just because I'm upset with the party, then I'm not going to vote for them. I mean, I am looking more at NDP than I am Liberal currently.
And you do vote for the party. You don't vote for the prime minister.
Yeah, exactly. And you vote for your...
Unless you're in the riding.
Unless, yeah, that's true.
But generally, every leader is going to win their seat back.
Yeah.
Generally.
Hope
I mean,
so.
Kathleen Wynne was very close to losing her seat, but
Yikes, that was a disaster.
like a couple, like 500 votes or something like that. 500,
Was it
1,000
that
votes short.
little?
It was very small. It was a very small margin.
That election was a whole mess.
My. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think,
Well,
like, honestly, every...
and
The French debate was pretty good.
it was good. And unfortunately, you weren't able to see it?
No.
And Jessica,
Couldn't
you weren't
find it
able. You couldn't
anywhere.
find
It's
it?
not in English
No.
anywhere.
Like, so they showed the French
They should
debate,
just
and then
leave.
they showed it with English dubs, but they didn't post it. Okay, we're getting something about the mics. Can you hear us?
I can hear you guys.
No. I'm talking about our viewers. Let me
Oh,
just
oh,
double check
sorry.
that. I mean,
A lot
the
of
audio's
technical
coming.
problems
Yeah.
today.
Okay, well, let's keep it going for now. Hopefully, there won't be any
Yeah, I
issues.
see Marshall's agreeing with me.
Okay, so now they're saying, "Oh,
Haha.
okay.
Proud of yourself?
Oh, wow.
Shocker." A
Conservative
hi, Marshall.
agreeing with a conservative.
Thank you for commenting, Marshall, Adam, and Daniel. They all commented on the feed, so thanks for the support. But yeah, let's move on to this debate, which was again the spiciest debate I've ever seen. It felt like, you've seen the Democratic debates, right? There was like 25 people on the same stage. So the fact that there were 6 instead of 5 for
It
the
felt
first
very
time.
American.
It did,
Yeah.
because there was
Yeah.
an audience too, right? There was an audience, and people were watching. instead of like the McLean's debate, right? And I only now realized why the McLean's debate was first. It's because they weren't included in the debate commission, right? It was CTV, Global, CBC, and then City TV is just left out of there. It's like the Green Party left out of the debate.
Yeah.
She's trying so hard to get in there.
She really is. And let's talk about that. The debate. Who won overall?
My vote is honestly with Singh. I thought he did a really good job.
Amara, you're going to say something completely different.
I know you're not going to disagree with me at all.
I think he talked a lot about the people he's met that have come into his office and told him sad stories, which is
but that's what
sad,
he has to address those issues. Like that is you are a public servant. You
have like 40 seconds to talk about your platform and you spend 20 of them talking about like an old lady who like cried to you. I just don't think that like doesn't mean anything. And I don't know. I think
I think it shows a cry for political change.
I think May did really well, honestly.
Yeah.
I think she was really good with pointing out how the Liberals' like climate change plan wasn't good enough, even though Trudeau kept saying that he was going to do it, and obviously him being like pit against Scheer, who isn't going to do as much as the Liberals. I think she did a good job. She kind of called out Singh too on that, so I think May won.
You think May won? Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
even though
not
he spoke over
I
her.
love her platform. I really do, and I love everything that she stands for.
And you would vote Green if it were useful.
100%. I would vote for them a million times over, but
That's illegal.
Yeah.
in my world, it's not. Okay. But
Sam?
it is what it is.
I think Scheer had. Who do I think won? Like, who do I think most?
I also
you
think
think-
Scheer did really well. I just want to say that too.
Yeah, me
But
too.
go on.
I was about to say. I
got a lot of stuff to say about this debate. I'm so excited. Keep going.
I think
Who won?
Scheer definitely kind of has shown to grow out of that awkward phase that he had.
You think he just hit puberty, basically?
Yeah, I guess you
like
could
it.
say
I
that.
hate his dimples. They really piss me off.
How did dimples
you know,
piss you off?
Everything
Okay,
about him just
listen.
pisses me off.
If Trudeau or
I feel
Singh,
that way about Singh.
Trudeau, yeah, exactly. If Trudeau or Singh had dimples, Jessica, you would love him. I don't know who you love, really. There's no
I don't
leader
love
that you really
anybody.
love. Yeah.
I hate Jagmeet Singh, but
Why
I
do
don't
you
love-
hate him though?
because
Like,
I feel like he's one of the least genuine people I've ever had to like experience. Like I just
even
feel
more
like,
least genuine than Trudeau, who is
the thing
yeah,
about
I think so. I think
Really?
Singh,
No,
because
I
I think Singh tries to capitalize so much on the fact that
on
he's
emotions and
brown
Yeah.
and wears a turban. And I guess Trudeau just doesn't
I
have
disagree.
that when he's not wearing blackface. So it's just kind of like, I just feel like it's just not genuine.
I
at all.
think a big part, like even when he talked about discrimination and everything last night,
Yeah, that was bull.
Boring.
He's not fighting Bill 21 every day of his life.
okay, but it's
He's the
systemic
leader of the
racism.
NDP party. He's fine.
It's still systemic though, and it's still something that will affect him and or has affected him. Like we don't know his past life. We don't know what
I
he's
came out
He's
of
the
the room.
leader
Bill
of the
21
NDP.
smacked me right in the face.
He's the leader of the NDP. I don't think he's
Still,
like.
that doesn't mean that they can't experience racism and they can't
Of course,
experience
everyone can experience
discrimi-
racism and discrimination. I just think that him acting like he's like been through
the poster
Jim
child.
Crow laws is a little bit too much, personally. That's why I don't like him.
Let's talk about the format of the debate, just to, aside
hated
from
it.
the
Yeah, it was
politics.
awful.
It was truly
Who was that? No, sorry.
difficult to watch.
That Toronto Star.
Supposed to be in front of the camera. Like, she just doesn't speak well
What?
on camera.
Oh, okay. I
No,
thought you
no.
meant something else.
What did you think I mean, huh?
Like,
What are you assuming there,
A
bud?
face for radio kind of thing.
Oh, it was.
That's what I
No,
thought you meant
no.
from that. I'm like, that's really offensive.
No, but you look at listen. Lisa LaFlamme is the queen of news. Okay, let's
Yeah.
just start there.
See, I thought she was gonna do the whole
handled
thing.
it. I wished no. She handled it so gracefully. She was so professional. She knows what she's doing. Donna Friesen was a little aggressive,
I liked her.
and then the Huffington Post chick. I don't know what her name is. The lady, Huffington Post. The second moderator.
Yeah, she was.
She was really angry. She
Yeah.
just
Was she the
hated
brown
everybody.
one?
Yeah.
Did you not want to say that?
Yeah, she was very, very angry. Like she just didn't let anybody
I didn't
speak.
like.
She seemed kind of partisan to me, though.
Yeah, like she let Trudeau speak a little bit more than everybody else.
I did not
Yeah.
like her.
all the other moderators would let people finish their sentence. At
Yeah.
least. But if
Yeah, she was like,
even Trudeau, I
"You're
think
done."
she cut off at one point.
At one point,
I
yeah,
have to
but she
rewatch
was a
it.
little.
He did get more seconds though.
Yeah,
But like down to the millisecond,
it's Huffington
even,
Post.
there was like 2 words left in his sentence,
Yeah.
and then be like, boop, done.
yeah, and literally, if they tried to finish their sentence, like she would not allow them.
Which isn't constructive.
Yeah,
like
no,
I
it's
get you,
not.
there's a time constraint, but let the man or woman finish their point.
Yeah,
And then that takes away from the voters because they get confused.
So
Well, that's the whole point of the debates, right? We're supposed to know what their platforms are so we
Exactly.
can make good decisions when voting, and I don't think the format did that at all.
No.
and then and Rosemary Barton, who finished off the debate, I mean,
She was
CBC.
aggressive.
CBC. Like, that's CBC quality. Like, the way she presented was CBC quality.
This
Like,
ain't bad.
It's just kind of like, let's get this done. You
She
know,
seemed like she was in a rush to get out of there.
Oh,
That's how I
100%.
took it. Like,
yeah, I
Her
mean,
Uber was there.
Trudeau, your check has came in. Okay, great. Let's just wrap
okay,
up.
let's get both planes going. You know,
Didn't he buy carbon offsets so that he could have 2 planes?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm just joking.
but
What does that even mean? I don't know what a carbon offset
Neither
is.
do I.
Does that
Me
mean he
neither.
just
I
donates
assume-
money?
so yeah, he bought carbon offset. What does that mean?
I don't. Yeah.
Do
what
people
does
like do
that
voters
mean?
even know what that means?
I don't
I
think
don't-
anyone knows
Carbon
what that
offset.
means.
let's ask Google, shall we? Carbon.
What is a carbon offset?
offset?
Well, so anyway, the debate, the structure was. I like the principle of the structure, but it wasn't enough time.
I agree.
It was true, like 40 seconds to like debate one another, like one-on-one debates, and then the group debate 4 minutes. What? 4 minutes?
Yeah.
To debate a whole issue? You're in Parliament for 4 years, and now you have 4 minutes to debate an issue. This isn't an elevator pitch.
I agree.
It's not effective. You can't.
No, it's not.
That's what I was thinking there too. Just because, I'm just thinking about like for our own understanding, like when you're sitting and doing let's say a test or something, and you have to think up of an answer or write a multiple choice, and you have like a few seconds per question. It's very hard to think
Yeah.
that fast and to debate your whole party's platform and to debate and fight for you to have that position in 45 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute. Like, that's not feasible. I mean, I know they prepare a lot and they obviously have a lot of anticipation for what's going to be asked of them, but you can't exactly prepare for how you're going to retaliate against my...
I wonder if you would agree with this. Should we make maybe one of the debates in the future a civic holiday? One of the national ones, say it's run by the CBC or broadcasted by the CBC, and then it's a civic holiday, and it's extended. You know, it was an hour and a half. I think this.
It was
debate
2 hours.
2 hours.
2 hours.
It wasn't long enough. I
No,
agree,
it wasn't.
especially with so many candidates.
It felt
Yeah.
way shorter. It
Yeah.
felt like no one ever had enough time to talk.
Even with the Democratic debates and Republican debates in the States, like, it's still 2 hours, but, like, they had more opportunity to speak.
The time was just divided not well.
I don't know if it would be a good idea to be a civic holiday, because then all the networks, like CBC, would get preference, and CBC can be biased as well as other networks. So I don't know. Then it would have to be a civic holiday, like every single election cycle. You'd have to pick a day, which is like not a.
Why can't you just add on an hour to what the debate was last night?
Well, that would be great. The stream was like 7 hours on Facebook, because they included the press conference as well. So I was trying to watch through that. I just couldn't finish it. I was too exhausted. But
Yeah.
just a 7-hour stream. But if it was like 3-4 hours of debating, first of all, people would
That's
get
more
bored.
effective.
People would get bored is the problem. I think you should debate on less issues
Yeah.
per debate, right? So the French debate is coming up.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Which we're all going to watch, hopefully, and talk about next week. But let's talk about the main issues that were discussed here, and then we're also going to talk about some great zingers from each of the candidates. We're going to start with the environment. So May is very against the pipeline. May is the biggest voice that nobody would let speak during the debate.
I wonder
really.
why.
Yeah,
she
why?
has the smartest ideas.
I think because, genuinely, I think it's going to be hard for a woman to, like, when everyone's interrupting each other and talking over each other, to talk over men, because men have,
Yeah.
like, deeper, louder, stronger voices. But in terms
Yeah,
of
you're
what
right.
she was, in terms of what she was saying, it makes sense for her platform. Of course, she'd be against the pipeline, and I like how she called Trudeau out. He was talking about how much he was doing for climate change and how well they'd meet targets that aren't good enough, but he bought a pipeline, so that doesn't really make sense.
I don't get that at all. Like, oh, yes, it's all blah, blah, blah. I mean, I do understand some of the arguments behind the pipeline and, keep oil local and not outsource it and all that kind of stuff. But we're in such an environmental crisis right now. Like,
Are we?
Yes, 100%. The world is warming. And if you deny climate change, then I'm sorry. That is
Do you believe
pure
there's a climate
stupidity.
emergency?
Yes, 100%.
Do you, Sam?
No.
No? Okay. So
How do you not believe that we're in a climate emergency? I mean, I get the argument that we're not doing as much damage to our Earth as, let's say, our manufacturing capitals like China or like India and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean that we here locally aren't doing stuff that's affecting the Earth. And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't implement legislation and implement things that will help long-term health of our environment, as well as, you know, you can, if you have the power of the government and if you are in office, then you can reach out and you can do things globally. It's the whole idea of like, it's a domino effect. If one country starts doing something and implements legislation and starts doing something to protect and have the heart of the environment and of the world as their central issue, then it will start influencing other countries. I mean, even if you look at it on a small scale of corporations, like the Walmart effect, if Walmart starts, they did this whole with like the Rainforest Alliance and whatever, if they wouldn't allow, and like Home Depot, they wouldn't allow wood to be sold in the store that wasn't a Rainforest Alliance certified, which made forestry systems really care about the processes that they're doing and actually care more about the environment instead of just fast production and monetary gain. So yeah, we are in a climate emergency. It might not necessarily be all because of what we're doing here in North America, and it could be a large portion of it from overseas development, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't do something here locally as well as influence change globally.
I agree.
Anything
Thank you.
to say?
Well, I think Canada has a 1.6% of the global carbon emission in the world.
Carbon tax. I'm for it.
Sure. Well, you don't pay a heating bill, so you wouldn't know
I'd
how
make
expensive it can be, or gasoline.
Still,
they have those. Ford has those wonderful stickers.
Disinvestment, whatever it's called. We shouldn't be investing in non-renewable resources and fossil fuels.
Sure, but it is a large part of the Canadian economy. The primary sector, natural resources.
Yeah, but you can also start. I mean, it's obviously not going to go away immediately. I mean,
sure.
That's just. It's not feasible, but that doesn't mean that, you know, you can start leaning off of those type of non-renewable fossil fuel generating industries that are causing a lot of damage and start investing in more green technology. And, you know, the money that was from that industry doesn't mean that it can't go into another more green initiative.
Sure, but we've seen these initiatives are costly. They don't always work, and they don't produce enough.
So what's more costly, not caring about the environment?
We want to talk.
Having
We want to talk about
up?
cost. I don't take any government initiative seriously until they embargo or put tariffs on products that come from countries that have much more lax regulations than we do.
I think they should do that for sure, but that doesn't mean that there's not a climate emergency, and they shouldn't also do things here.
Sure. Well, if the
you can keep pointing fingers at other countries until it's too late, and then it's too late.
Yeah, but we do less than 2% of the world's carbon emissions. You fix an exploded pipe in your backyard more than the leaky faucet in your kitchen. And if countries,
but they both need to be
fixed. But we are
fixed.
such an influencer. Like, we are North America and we're Canada, and I know the States, who knows what the hell is going on over there and what they would do. But here in Canada, it has to, again, like I said, it has to be somewhat of a domino effect. Canada here has to have more of an upper hand, and they have to start implementing things that will have global change and global effect, and that, you know, countries overseas, they're going to see that it's harder to do business or negotiations or whatever with Canada if they don't start changing their policies to be more green.
But trade's all about leverage. So how do we get any leverage if we say, look how we destroyed our economy? Don't you want to help us out and do that for yourself? Like, how do we might have the moral high ground, subjective moral high ground, but how would we influence them?
I don't know. I think that it has to come through corporation, and that's to come through big business, and that's a whole issue in and of itself. I think we are a capitalist society, as much as I really don't like that. We are a capitalist society, and big change comes from big business. So if we as and then again, that comes down to your own, how you deal with your everyday, what you do in your everyday lives, like even if it's something as small and minuscule and seems as stupid and insignificant as just like using a metal straw, not using single-use plastics. If you start making those changes and demanding that from big business and corporations that are running this world and running North America, then they're going to start making a change to accommodate you to keep hold of your business. So it has to start with that. And I think is like not only do we have to look at the fossil fuel sector and all that kind of stuff, but since we are capitalists, it has to start with big business.
Sure. And how do you incentivize them? Through government regulation?
Probably
right?
legislation, probably tax cuts, something along those lines. I mean, that's the only thing that really motivates them.
But aren't you for taxing the wealthiest?
Yeah,
Like big
corporations
business?
are huge. Yeah.
So then you give them a tax cut, and you're going against.
So what's
Well,
more
like-
important, taxing the wealthy or saving the planet? That's what that comes down to,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Taxing the wealthy.
I mean, if you tax the wealthy, that can be also used to. That's very.
You're in a conundrum there.
It is. It is. I mean, you can tax individuals. Individuals, yes, they are legal persons. But if you tax, like let's say you tax or give tax cuts to corporations, that doesn't mean that you can't tax the individual. Like you can
Yeah.
you can cut the taxes for, let's say, Amazon, but you can still tax heavily Jeff Bezos because nobody should be an absolute ginormous billionaire with that much money.
You don't think people can have wealth?
I didn't say that. I'm saying excessive wealth is ridiculous, and there shouldn't be
But if
people
they
that.
work for it,
He does.
Yeah,
doesn't
he
work for it, though.
doesn't. And, he cut the health care of all of his employees so that he could have a few more bucks lining his pocket.
Well,
Like
that's the role of the government to jump in and properly make
yeah.
sure that there's no abuse towards workers.
But the thing is, they avoid, like even that last night it was talked about how, even in our liberal government present day, like people with offshore investments and foreign investments, as well as people like big billionaires or millionaires making over 20 million is what the NDP wants to do. And I think it's Green Party as well. But even if you have to put in more government control about getting those taxes because people evade and people don't pay and they find loopholes and whatever.
Didn't
so that
May say she wants to establish a tax commission to investigate tax? I think that's a good idea.
And Singh said he was specifically against offshore tax havens, but he didn't provide any solution to eliminating them.
In common,
At least in the debate, maybe
Singh
it was
fashion.
official.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in his policy outline he did specifics.
Well, on the topic of workers and workers' rights, like you mentioned, Jessica, let's move on to both two big issues, which are immigration and Bill C-21 in Quebec. So immigration started out with I believe it was Lisa Laflamme reading out Bernier's tweets, and Bernier had to defend himself. Bernier essentially said that he believes in immigration, but it needs to be more controlled, and we need better integration for immigrants. So what do you guys think about Bernier's plan, Bernier's tweets, Bernier's thoughts? Because then when it came to debate, you have Trudeau with his zinger, and he said, Trudeau to Bernier, you say publicly what Scheer thinks privately.
Snap.
That was spicy.
Spicy.
That was
Very spicy. And I was like, oh. And then you see the camera went to Scheer, and he's like, I don't want to be associated with this guy.
Yeah, of course.
because it's the truth.
But I don't think I think his tweets are awful, Bernier's tweets, but wanting to integrate immigrants into Canadian society better, I don't think that's a bad thing.
I don't think that's what he wants to do. He just wants to cut it, and because he believes, from his tweets, that immigrants are cults and ghettos. And
No, he said multiculturalism was a cult. But I think that immigrants should be integrated better than they are right now into Canadian society. You have little communities of people that are basically living in their home countries in Canada, which I don't think should happen.
Yeah, he said multiculturalism in its current form was a cult, and that the current immigration system, whether it's through direct government action or as a byproduct, it forms. He shouldn't have used ghetto because it has obviously negative connotations, but it concentrates ethnic groups in certain areas. I mean, I don't
ghettos
think
in the not the way it's popularly used,
but
ghettos in
literally
the way that in the
in the
literal
dictionary
sense of the word.
definition of ghetto is
so
a
racial
constant.
segregation.
Sure, but it's self-segregation. That's
Yeah,
very
and
different.
that shouldn't happen.
No, exactly.
You can, but
and you
that
don't just-
happens
you don't
when you have
describe it that
uncontrolled
way.
immigration. I think that I don't think what he's saying is super awful in terms of immigration.
I don't know. Canada is
said-
built on multiculturalism and it's built on immigration.
But everyone's supposed to be
No, that's
Canadian,
actually
not
only since Trudeau Senior was built on multiculturalism. Or do you mean the official policy of multiculturalism?
yeah, we're multicultural. You're gonna deny that?
No,
we're
we are.
multicultural?
There's There's plenty of ethnicities in Canada sounding, sure.
You learn through diversity, and you don't learn by just, the same exact people.
I'm not saying that, but I think that like in terms of like learning the language, you should definitely learn to speak either English or French, probably English.
I agree with that. I mean, those are our national languages.
I mean, you should learn both,
French.
but I feel like people are probably
exactly.
going to learn
No, I agree
English.
with that. But to just say that, like, oh, we're going to cut all of this and, not allow people into our country, and
no one has a right to be in another country, though. Like, I think we
what
should
about
have
refugees.
We should have immigration, but I don't think that we should just have like uncontrolled immigration. And in terms of refugees, of course,
they should still learn the language.
They should still learn the language. We should be compassionate. I think, like, if somebody is a refugee and comes here at like 2, I don't think when they turn 18, like, send them back. They've lived their whole lives here. But we also have to be realistic in terms of how many resources we have and how many refugees we can support.
And
in
also,
Canada.
according to Bernier, he said that Canada accepts more refugees per capita than the States.
Yeah, and that's
right,
insane.
Which is
the demographics of Canada are changing
Like,
quicker than any
That's
other
absolutely
Western country.
ridiculous.
And he said it's basically one Nova Scotia a year. That's what he
Yeah.
said, which is a lot of people. That's an extra province a year.
And refugees aren't people that necessarily have skills or anything to, like, they need to be taken care of. They're running for their lives. So
That doesn't mean they don't have skills.
I'm not saying they don't have like any skills. I'm just saying that they're
They still
people
could be,
that are
like, totally educated.
They're
I think
people that are
refugees
running
are
for their
a red
lives.
herring.
I
Even
agree.
under the Harper government, he increased the amount of immigrants that we take in. I think it's 250, or that might be the current level. But you should look at if you want to really talk about the transformative changes or the transformative effects of immigration, just look at the legal immigration. I think refugees are a minute or a very small amount of the total amount of immigrants we put in every year. So I think it's a red herring, and both parties use it, more specifically liberals, as a talking point to hit the conservatives over the head.
I agree.
Well, in terms of Bernier, we have a comment from Marshall. He says, whether it's Trudeau, Scheer, Bernier, or anybody else, you don't have to like them, but at least criticize them based on what they actually say or believe. No need to make things up. So I want to know what he means about making things up. So we're going to see what you... Can you clarify that? Which part do you think is made up? Is it about Bernier hating immigrants, or is that what you're talking about? So Bernier was also attacked from every side. Like, he and May just straight up said, like, we know we hate each other.
Yeah.
Like, they just had that discussion. We know we hate each other. Obviously, that's not really productive.
Bernier is just not somebody I think you want to be associated with as a politician, just considering his tweets and kind of his, like, public image.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of, like, stupid, but he's kind of like Canada's Trump almost, I feel. And Canada's not... I don't know. Like, I just
From
feel
the
like...
tweet perspective, yeah.
I just feel like being associated with him is not great. And a lot of people view him in the same sort of racist light. Like, as a racist. I don't think he's
Falsely?
necessarily racist. Yeah. But I think that it's just better to kind of distance yourself from him. Even Scheer doesn't really want to be connected with Bernier.
And in terms of Scheer, I just love the moment where the reporter said to Scheer, you can ask anybody here a question. He just slowly turns towards Trudeau and the audience erupts in laughter. Because obviously we know Scheer's going to go to Trudeau. I just thought that was great. And so his question, and this is one of the zingers, we're talking about, I guess we'll move on to SNC and come back to Bill 21. But he said, Mr. Trudeau, when did you decide that the rules didn't apply to you? And
Ouch.
The second he was born into a rich family.
Oh, hot take.
He didn't decide anything as a baby.
Okay, well, let's say the moment... well, I can't even say the moment he put on blackface because he was a 29-year-old man then.
Was that the first time? Or what about the other videos?
No, the other video of him making that very...
The dance.
Yeah, the dance.
And the ripped jeans.
Yeah, and he even painted his knees. Maybe that was the moment he knew the rules didn't apply.
What was that?
He commits. He gets the job done. He does it all the way.
Yeah.
I do think that Scheer brought out the blackface thing way too early, though. I think he could have waited.
I'm
He
surprised
just
people
kept
didn't mention it.
attacking,
People should have just
attacking.
interrupted Trudeau. Bro, you wore blackface when you were 29.
That doesn't mean that he doesn't have like good political
I
opinions.
know, but people
though.
should have...
I think that I
Humiliated
don't
them,
agree
but
with
they
that
didn't.
whatsoever,
agree.
but it's also part of like I think it just being like, oh, because you did this when you were young, which he should have
Not
done and been like he had the total mens rea to decide, okay, this is not okay, this is not.
And he did his legs.
Yeah.
Probably took a long time.
That
for him
doesn't.
to-
This was also
get all
over
the
20
blackface on.
years ago. That I think that feeds into the whole idea of cancel culture, which is really toxic. Where you just totally disregard somebody because of something that they may have done, a mistake they may have made when they were younger or when they were wherever, and then just totally disregard them for eternity. I obviously, like we said before, I mean, who does support that? I don't think anybody does, like, or would publicly say that they would. That doesn't mean that
Why
we
did you
can't.
point at me when you said that?
Oh, what? I didn't mean to. I'm just saying.
Just subliminally.
God.
Freudian slip.
That doesn't mean that we should totally disregard Trudeau and his platform. I still do believe in the liberal platform. I mean, I do obviously think it has its downfalls, and it should do more for the environment as well as for Indigenous communities and nations. But that doesn't mean that we should totally just cancel him and not let him have a voice because of a mistake that he continually made.
I just think him running on being like a feminist and being so progressive and not being racist at all, and then doing blackface multiple times, like, he should have just had to answer for it a little bit more, I think.
And the fact that he participated in a debate without Elizabeth May.
Which
I think was totally unfair to Elizabeth May. She should have been included. So at the same time as that debate that happened, the French debate, she was doing one-on-one with 5 individual people, one of which is a good friend, Matthew Mozaffari. He was a Ryerson student, and now he's out in the real world. So it was an interesting show. I saw his interview, but we're running out of time, so let's go back to Bill 21. That's probably one of the biggest issues. So Trudeau said that he would intervene potentially. Scheer said he would not intervene. Blanchet doesn't want anybody to touch it because, according to him, Quebec is a country.
It's a nation.
Quebec is a nation, just like Canada is a nation.
I love when he says Quebec and the provinces. Yeah, that's great. It's like, I love that.
So he's very nationalist in that sense, right? He's so pro Quebec, and I think he's a separatist. He's a separatist, right?
Yeah.
Well, no.
He said that he was last night, though. Like, he did say that.
I don't think so. I don't think officially he's a separatist.
Trudeau called him a separatist.
Yeah, that's what it was.
I think they use that as a slur, but I don't think he's officially.
Is separatist a slur?
Well, from Trudeau, it might be.
It's almost like calling someone a socialist.
The Anglo, it is a slur.
And it's interesting because Trudeau's he attacks Blanchet like there's no tomorrow. Like, he doesn't really care because he knows he has Quebec support.
Well,
but then you have
Blanchet is actually second in Quebec. That's why he's attacking him, especially on issues related to Quebec.
Really?
Yep.
Interesting. But even so, Scheer's very quiet on Quebec. He's like, you do what you want, just vote for me. And I think Singh is the same way because he's so very, very quiet about, he's like, we will not open the door on the debate. We will not intervene. And then when he was asked from reporters, would you intervene? He brought up the fact that if it went to the Supreme Court, then he would have to intervene.
Yeah.
There's what I don't understand in like this, how this is such a large debate is because, I mean, it's a constitutional argument. I mean,
Quebec never signed the Constitution, though.
Didn't he say your Constitution during the debate?
I was wanting to bring that up so bad. That was great. That was probably the best singer.
Trudeau, like, trying to attack Singh about Bill 21 is kind of like, I mean, I don't know, a little bit ridiculous. But
I mean, like, but the thing is, like,
it's granted though, because if Singh is, that's the whole point. Everybody keeps asking Singh, if you're so pro minorities and standing up for people, why wouldn't you?
That's
intervene?
the problem when you try to make yourself the face of all minorities in a country. You're
okay,
expected
but
to be that way.
There's the doctrine of paramountcy. How is a federal government without the solid grounds and without meeting all the tests and obligations going to interfere in a provincial jurisdictional case?
They can't. They can just
exactly.
They're just talking about it.
But still, it would almost cross the line, and it would almost be a violation of the Constitution. So that's why it is such a sticky issue, and that's why I support Singh's talk. Okay, he can intervene once it reaches the Supreme, or if it reaches the Supreme Court level. But from this level, nobody really has that power to do anything. I mean, what, are you going to violate I mean, you can if you invoke the doctrine, but that's a really long process.
Completely.
Not necessarily. I mean, there are grounds and there are case histories where the doctrine needed to be invoked, and it was solid grounds and it made sense. It doesn't mean that the Constitution is any less powerful. I mean, we are reporting, or basically working for the federal, like the federal level is the federal level. I mean, that's that's where big decisions and that's where big things happen, not necessarily always on the provincial level. So, it doesn't mean that just because they've invoked it doesn't mean that the Constitution is invalid in any sense of the word. It just deals with like issues where there's common grounds that could cross between two areas of Section 91, Section 92.
Yep.
Do you think that Singh should interfere?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I think again that invokes that's unnecessary. I mean, if you met the steps of the doctrine, but otherwise, I don't think so, because the federal government doesn't have the ability to just go and deal with municipal or provincial issues. If it reached the Supreme Court level, then yes, he definitely has the grounds and he definitely has the ability. But without the proper, without the provinces doing, I mean, as much as I don't agree with this bill, and without the provinces doing their own thing, you can't just go in and run around and be like, no, this is how we're going to do things. That invokes and that's a violation of the Constitution. And again, unless you're invoking the doctrine, you can't and you shouldn't.
Right. And so we're running out of time. We're basically at the end of our show. So the last thing that I want to know is, what can we expect to see in the French debate later this week? Because we still got one more episode before the actual election where we're going to talk about more specifics in terms of which areas are going to go red, blue, orange, green, and so forth. But we obviously had so much more to talk about today. We just weren't able to. But what can we expect to see in the French debate? Amara?
I think probably more of the same. I don't think anything's really going to change. I think this is what the debates are going to look like. I hope that the format's a little better so we can kind of hear a little bit more. But yeah, I think more of the same.
Sam?
Yeah, more of the same, but just maybe without all the punchiness, because people are obviously going to be speaking in their second or possibly third language, so they might not be as proficient in it. So more of the same, maybe more ganging up on Trudeau, because they see him as the front runner. I could see the Bloc definitely being more on the offensive towards Trudeau because they can nip at his heels.
Right. And Jessica?
I'd hope to see more talk about the environment and more discussion about that, because I know that is a major political point, and it is what a lot of people will be making their final decisions on, as well as more discussion about what plans are we going to put in place for like all the missing girls and the Indigenous communities, and what are we going to do for them, which I don't think was really talked about enough last night. And it's a huge point that needs to be addressed. And I know Trudeau did talk, like that was one part of his platform the last time he ran, and he didn't do anything about it. So I don't know. I hope that's talked about more. I definitely think more is going to be brought up about this bill, even though I think it's kind of a moot point at this point, because again, what can you really do? I mean, it would be nice to be like, hey, this is totally racist and against human rights, we're going to scrap it, but that kind of goes against our whole Constitution.
And Singh actually made a point about that Trudeau said a lot of things in 2015 that he believed him, but he didn't follow through. So environment, same thing, is a big issue that you want to see talked about. And I guess we'll just have to see. Hopefully, you guys will be able to see the debate now with English dubbing. Sam and I, we watched.
Or we'll just learn French in like the next couple of days.
Yeah,
just
please.
French.
It's really c'est très simple, honnêtement. Donc,
Oui.
I was thinking about doing a show in French, a separate show, just for fun, but we'll see. Maybe we'll do this show in French next week, just so. So guys, make sure to learn the language so that we can do the show in French.
You got it.
Awesome. Best team ever. So that was our show for this week. Thank you to everyone that tuned in to our Season 7 premiere, especially those who stuck with us following all the technical difficulties. It was a lot to deal with this morning, but we got it under control. Thank you to those who commented on our live feed. Marshall, Pierre, Hugh, Daniel, Keon, Adam, thank you to all of you who commented. And we'll be back next week with a brand new episode, same day, same time, same people. Have a great day, everyone.